It started with an axe, but it ended with a warning I can't forget. I've spent half a decade exploring trails alone. Eventually, you gain the confidence to leave the main paths behind. Looking back, that confidence is what put me in this mess last fall. My destination was a remote stretch of the Manahua Hills Preserve. I drove up for a solo weekend escape. The air was cool, maybe mid-50s, the sky a solid blanket of gray. Perfect hiking weather, promising total isolation. For the first few hours, everything was peaceful. Then, the forest opened up. Before me was a deep, rocky split in the earth. It wasn't a sheer cliff, but a fall would guarantee serious injury. The walls were sheer, covered in crumbling shale, but spanning the gap was a giant, fallen beech tree. Its surface was worn smooth, clearly used as a bridge by others before me. I tested it, decided it was secure, and began my careful crossing. The focus was intense. When my boots touched solid ground on the far side, a wave of relief and adrenaline washed over me. That's when I heard it. A steady, methodical thump. I turned. A man stood on the opposite bank. He was maybe in his 60s, dressed in faded work clothes, a worn coat. His beard was wild. In his hands was a wood-cutting axe. He walked straight to the base of my bridge and started chopping. "What are you doing?" I shouted across the divide. He ignored me, his swings relentless. One strike bit deep. The entire trunk shuddered. I screamed at him to stop, that I'd just come across. The horrifying truth settled in. He knew. He was trying to trap me. My panic turned to anger. I yelled insults, anything to make him react. Finally, he paused. He set the axe down and stepped to the edge. His eyes were hollow, the skin around them bruised-looking. He leaned forward. His voice was calm, factual. "I know this place. You don't." It was more terrifying than any shout. He stared, picked up his tool, and vanished into the trees. I was stranded. The tree was now damaged, splintered on his side. My phone had no signal. Fear began to outweigh my anger. I had to move. I followed the gorge downstream, hoping for another crossing. An hour passed. The ravine only grew deeper, the walls farther apart. Dusk was approaching. My panic spiked. Was I going to have to climb down into this pit? Then I found a clearing, a campsite. At first, I felt hope, maybe another hiker. But the details were wrong. Trees were carved with strange, deep gashes. Weird totems of bone and rusted metal hung from branches. Tattered cloth strips fluttered. This wasn't a campsite. It was a shrine. I backed away and ran. Almost immediately, I heard movement behind me. A soft crunch of leaves. I'd spin around, silence. Then it would start again, closer. My mind raced. Animal or something else? The sounds grew less cautious. I glimpsed a shape, a person, ducking behind a trunk. Then I saw another. They were fanning out. One held a length of heavy pipe. They were herding me. I ran. I didn't know what they wanted, only that it was life or death. A raw, screaming cry erupted behind me, a sound of pure malice. Exhaustion burned my lungs. The gorge was still on my left. Then I saw it. Another fallen log, thinner than the first. It was my only chance. I didn't think. I scrambled onto it and inched across, certain it would snap. I bet my life on a piece of rotten wood. I made it. Gulping air, I turned. 3 figures stood at the far edge. They were ragged, mirror images of the first man. The one with the pipe stared. He placed a hand on the log as if to follow, then stopped. His eyes locked onto mine. Then he spoke, his voice a low growl. "Get out. Now. Consider yourself lucky." I didn't need telling twice. I fled into the deepening dark, expecting pursuit that never came. The forest was silent again, a tomb. By some miracle, my frantic run angled back toward a known trail. I found my car. I filed a report later, but what could they do? Months have passed. I still go outdoors, but the joy is gone. That man's calm certainty haunts me. He knew the woods. He knew what waited for me. He'd planned it. The thought chills me to my core. I was never just lost. I was prey. I got lost in the woods. But the wolves I met weren't the worst part. 3 years ago, I ventured deep into an unmarked part of Minnesota's northern forest. I love the raw wild, not the groomed trails, just you and the ancient trees. I'd been out maybe 4 hours when I realized I had no idea where I was. That disorienting pit opened in my gut. The sun was still up, but that primal fear was already there. I tried to stay calm, walking, hoping for a landmark. Then I heard it, a soft rustling keeping pace behind me. I'd stop. Silence. I'd walk. It followed. Not a deer, something else. Then the forest erupted, movement everywhere. I was encircled. A pack of wolves, 6 of them, materialized from the trees. Snarling, staring. I was prey. My knife was out, my heart a drum. I thought, this is it. This is how I die out here. Then, as one, every wolf froze. Their heads snapped toward a point behind me. Not a sound from them. Pure, instinctual terror. Then they scattered, vanished. Whatever they saw, it terrified them. The hunters became the hunted, and I was still there. The silence that followed was absolute. No wind, no birds. The light itself seemed to thin and dim. My fear transformed. This was no longer about animals. What chases off a wolf pack? I had to move. Do I follow the wolves or continue toward whatever that was? I chose to press forward. I still had daylight. About 20 minutes later, I saw a break in the trees, a clearing. At first, relief, maybe a campsite. Then I saw the details. Symbols were gouged into the bark of every surrounding tree. Not graffiti, ritualistic, deep-cut patterns. Hanging from branches were leather cords, small bones, and twisted pieces of rusted metal. In the center was a stone circle, but the rocks were stacked into unnatural little towers. Inside it lay odd trinkets, torn cloth, strange jewelry, and the smoke. A cloud of dense black smoke hung in the air, motionless, about head high. It didn't drift. It wasn't coming from the cold fire pit. It just was. A stain on the air. I stood at the edge, frozen. I couldn't look away from that smoke. A deep, illogical sorrow mixed with my terror. It felt like I was watching a memory, not standing in it. Like I was separated by glass. What was my body mourning? I don't know. I stood there for minutes, trapped. Finally, some part of my mind rebooted. I turned and I ran. I didn't think, I just fled. What happened next is missing.
my memory goes foggy. I think the sheer terror let instinct take over, but part of me wonders if whatever was in that clearing took those moments from me. My next clear memory is darkness. I was at the tree line, sweating and shivering, my car just ahead. I drove and never looked back. Fear should sharpen memory. Mine was erased. I never reported it. What would I say? I've tried to find logic in it. The wolves, the clearing, the smoke, the lost time. They're not separate events. They're connected.
That's the thought that lingers. Not the scare, but the pattern. The woods showed me something they usually keep hidden. If this story got under your skin, please like this video. It helps more than you know. Subscribe to Winds of Thought for more journeys into the shadows just off the trail. We brought a gun camping. By the end, I wished we'd brought two. When I was younger, my friends and I lived for weekend camping trips. Once we could drive, we'd disappear into a new spot every Friday. Our parents trusted us to handle ourselves, which is why my dad lent me his handgun, a compact 9mm. This happened during our senior year of high school. In early spring, my girlfriend Chloe, my buddy Drew, his girlfriend Lily, and I drove 9 hours to backpack in the Arkansas Ozarks. We arrived late, set up at an official site, and crashed. The next morning, we drove to the trailhead for a hike to a waterfall, planning to find a wild campsite afterward. Not long into the hike, Lily kept glancing back nervously. She swore a man was standing far behind us, just watching. We stopped and looked. Sure enough, a figure darted into the trees. Drew shouted a threat into the woods, mostly to look tough. We had the gun, so we felt secure enough to continue. We reached the stunning waterfall, had lunch, relaxed. A couple hours later, we started looking for a campsite. That's when I saw her. An unnaturally tall, thin woman standing perfectly still between two pines, staring directly at us. She had to be nearly 7 feet. A cold dread shot through me. We all saw her. We yelled that we were armed. Slowly, she turned and walked away. We were too spooked to stay, so we hiked on. Were these two strangers connected? An hour later, we found a perfect spot by a creek with a deep pool. We swam, trying to shake off the creepiness, joking about local weirdos. As the sun set, we got out to cook a feast. Grilled chicken, rice, veggies. We ate well, drank, and I rolled a few joints. We laughed loud under the stars, feeling invincible again. Drew was so drunk he tipped out of his camp chair. Eventually, we stumbled to our tents. Chloe and I were in our tent when we heard it clear as day. A low, mocking laugh right outside. I thought it was Drew messing with us. "What's so funny, man?" I yelled. His reply from the other tent froze my blood. "That wasn't me." Instantly sober, I grabbed the pistol, burst outside, and fired 2 warning shots into the sky, screaming for them to leave. We heard frantic footsteps retreating into the dark. We moved the tents together and took shifts on watch. The next day we debated leaving, but decided to stick it out, hiking closer to the exit for one last night. We passed one other group of hikers and told them our story, which freaked them out too. I realized then they were the only people we'd seen all day, despite a full parking lot. Where was everyone? We camped 3 miles from the cars. After another dinner and a few drinks to calm our nerves, we went to bed. I woke up needing to pee. Paranoia had me bring the gun. As I stood there, I heard the unmistakable crunch of a footstep. My heart seized. I fumbled, finished, yanked my pants up, and flicked on my headlamp. The beam illuminated the man from the trail. He was closer now, gaunt, with matted hair, and he was holding a long, wicked-looking blade. He saw me see him, and he charged. I didn't think. I raised the gun and emptied the magazine. I must have hit him. I heard a pained cry and saw him go down. "Pack up now!" I screamed to my friends. We didn't call the cops. In my panicked mind, I worried about charges, and frankly, his life didn't seem worth the trouble. We abandoned our tents, grabbed our bags, and ran those 3 miles in the dark like our lives depended on it. Because they did. We locked ourselves in the car, covered the windows, and waited for dawn. We left at first light and never looked back. We ran 3 miles in the dark because they did. I still don't know if we did the right thing. No news ever came out about it. For all I know, they're still out there.